Guys, welcome to the Word on the Street. I am joined here by Pastor Samuel and Pastor Allan, my friends from Brazil. I'll just let them introduce themselves. Samuel, you can start.
Okay, thank you for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you and Pastor Alan. My name is Samuel. I'm from Brazil. I am 26 years old and I graduated in theology and journalism in Advent University in Brazil. And I'm working almost 10 months as volunteer missionary here in Scotland. Yeah, Pastor Alan as well.
My turn. Yeah, I'm Alan Zukovsky. I'm from Brazil. Oops, I'm from Brazil as well. I'm graduated in theology and music. And yeah, I came here to work as a missionary, helping to be like a pastor assistant at Samuel. But I have, I have to take care of music as well, some kinds of music. So yeah, we are here. And for me, it's a bit challenge to be here because Samuel made journalism, so he speaks very well.
Oh, so it's
So I have to. Today I have to.
But your English is much
Pretend
better
it-
than it was a year ago. I think
Thank
we
God.
met almost a year ago now.
Yeah,
So it's much better. And I helped you once on WhatsApp 2 days ago, and I corrected you a little bit.
Yeah, of course, of course. No, especially to write and so on. Yeah, we still need help, but now we can take a conversation without breaks.
But okay, so when I came here and I came from Africa to a different culture, it was but I've been here for a long time. I've been here for what, over 20 years, very long time.
Wow.
So, but I was a kid, so it wasn't really like a massive culture shock. So, how does it feel coming from Brazil to Scotland? Was it weird? Did you feel like it was a completely different planet?
It's interesting. We have some things similar, but we have also some things with different point of view. So it's interesting. So yeah, you can go first.
The third thing is the weather, right? It's different because I wasn't used to this winter, to this weather, and we need to adapt ourselves. But I think that it be part of our mission, to immerse in another culture and to learn. But now I am enjoying. I mean, I'm
You're
liking
enjoy-
this weather.
You're enjoying the weather, okay?
Yes. Yes.
We're not the same. We're not the same. We're not the same. I wish. I don't mind being here, but I wish it was Brazil weather because I went to Brazil like last year.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I loved it. The only problem was in the Amazon, you're showering and you're sweating in the shower.
Yes,
that was the only problem.
Exactly.
But other than that, I
No,
loved it.
you have to visit São Paulo. It's
Yeah, the first time you need to visit
But
our
how
state.
how has it been for you?
no, yeah, the same. Like talking about weather it was the same. Like in my life, I always preferred summer, sunny
Me
days.
too.
And so on, because I like ice cream, I like pool, I like these kind of things. So yeah, and every time when I was praying for some mission trip or some like to be a missionary, not in my country, I was praying to God help me to find a place that I didn't I didn't want to how can I say not clash, but I didn't want to use to code.
Mm.
But then last year I started to pray more intentionally, and I didn't pray about weather. So God,
Bro, you here.
yeah, exactly. But now, yeah, I don't know if I can say that I'm enjoying cold, but for me now it's better. Like I'm used to, sometimes I can go out and I don't need many colds, as in the beginning, because we came here on summer,
Yeah.
in summer, and in this summer, it was very cold,
Your first
too
trip.
cold for us.
Your first trip up to Glencoe. It was raining.
Yes.
Yeah, the first time you went.
Yes. I think that it was 1 month after when you arrived here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was our first experience, in Scotland, the Highlands, to enjoying this environment.
Yeah, and I remember that day it was a challenge. I was shaking, and everybody was okay. It's cold, but really, but it's not cold for it. And I was like,
Yes.
uh, there'll be more like that to come. But whilst you guys are here, I know you've been doing a lot of things, especially helping like young people. You with the teens, you did the teens as well, but in a different capacity. And I know when I was growing up, we didn't really have like people coming over, like especially people who have studied theology, pastors being like our mentors and doing one-to-one things. Um, but I wanted to ask, when you were growing up, did you want to do something like this? Is this something you thought, yeah, I want to be a pastor one day and I want to go and travel the world and help people? Is this something that when you're a teenager, maybe not when you're a kid, because when you're 10 years old, you want to be many things, but when you were like 15, 16, did you think this was something you wanted to do?
Go ahead.
oh, me first. Okay, yeah. As my mom told me, I started to say with 5. I was 5 years old, I think. I started to say, "Oh, I want to be a pastor." But in the same time, I was saying that I wanted to be an English teacher, engineer, pastor, math teacher, and one more, I don't remember. But because I wanted to help, so I told my mom, if I go somewhere and they need to build a building, I can build if I am engineer. I can be a pastor. English is the universal language. So if I know English, I can teach. So I can teach. So when I was child, I had this dream to become a missionary, or a pastor, or both. Like, um, yeah, and maybe the influence was my family because I have pastor. Someone knows in Brazil, my family's not famous, but a bit famous.
So famous.
Famous, yeah. But yeah, Zukovsky, like, so maybe the influence because I grew up looking as seeing and watching my family doing many things in church, even though they weren't pastors. Like I have pastors, but I have, of course, no pastors in my family, so they were doing many things. So maybe influence. Um, yeah. So in the high school, I started to think about like maybe psychologist to become a psychologist because my mom crossed with depression. So I started to study some things, and for me it was very interesting to study about psychology and so on. So I started to think about psychology or music, but then in my last high school year, I decided to study theology.
How about you?
Yeah, my experience is interesting because I was baptized at 8. Yeah. And when I was baptized,
Did you
I
know? Did you know?
felt I
Did you know what
felt
you were getting
called.
into?
Yeah, I felt called to be a pastor one day. I
Wow.
remember that the day of my baptism, inside of baptismal pool, I felt one day you will be a pastor, and one day you will baptize people as well. At age, I remember that my toys, I baptized my toys.
I didn't know about
Yes,
it.
yes, dreaming. My mom remembered that she laughed a lot because since my childhood, I was praying and dreaming. One day I will study theology, one day I will serve Lord as a pastor. And God opens a lot of doors to fulfill and to achieve this dream.
It's very interesting that you say that, because for for you especially, it sounds that you, by the time when you were very young, you already knew what you wanted to be. By the time you're in high school, you're already beginning to think that this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then, but for example, for myself, well, maybe not for myself, but for a lot of people that I know, they have no idea what they want to do.
Mhm.
Even when by the time they reach 20, 21, they still
Yes.
have no idea what they want to do. And there's one interesting thing you guys said. You felt called.
Yes.
That's a very tricky thing. People say you hear the voice, not you hear the voice, you hear God telling you to go this direction. There's a lot of people who say that they've heard God telling them to do some things, and then they end up doing very evil things. Does does that make sense?
Yes.
So how can a teenager, an 8-year-old, know when God is telling them this is what I want you to do?
Yeah, because it's personal. Because I think that the call that God does for every person is individual, you know. And in my personal history, I felt in my heart God telling to me, Samuel, I'm calling you to be a pastor in the future. I'm calling you. So I started to give Bible study at 9, 10 in my church in
You were
Brazil.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus in the temple.
And when I start to give Bible studies to participate in the service, you know, it was as God saying me, Samuel, I am confirming that I am calling you to be a pastor. So I remember in my elementary school and high school, my friends called me pastor, even if I didn't start theology yet.
Mm.
So in my childhood and when I was teenager, God every year, every time, because I serve in a lot of departments in the church as well. And God told me, yes, you are growing up, you know, but when you finish your high school, go to the theology course and you will be a pastor. You become a pastor, yeah.
Very
It
interesting.
was personally, my personal history. You
Doing
know?
Bible studies at 9 years old. That's at 9 years old. I was not doing anything anywhere near that. I was
No, of course. I had a supervisor,
Yeah.
the teacher of the Sabbath school. She was teaching with me, but I started this age. Yeah.
And can I just ask, were you didn't go to Christian schools? You went to like public schools.
Oh no.
No, no.
So they were you went to
Yeah, we both studied in
Yeah,
Christian schools.
Yes.
Christian schools.
Actually, Adventist schools.
Yes.
So because here we don't have
Yep.
that many. We're not like Brazil and some places in Africa where there's a lot of boarding schools or private schools which are faith based, right? Did you did you have friends that were not Christians, non Christians? And how did you find that? Because they did. I assume they didn't go. They didn't go to Christian schools. So since you were always interacting with Christian people when you were growing up, how did that affect your interaction with people who were not Christians?
Oh no, actually, the Christians schools, Adventist schools, we have non-Christians as well, because there in Brazil, like, because okay, Brazil is a religious country, so this is one thing, a
Mm.
Christian country. So even though someone doesn't agree with Christianity, they agree that Christian values
Mm.
can teach better, you know, about life and so on. So we have non-Christians from school, but yeah, because my friends, non-Christians, I think I made at school, and then after, while I was studying theology, I made more non-Christians friends.
Really?
Yeah, but I can tell later. So yeah, but we have this connection, you know, because people agree with that. Like, okay, Christian schools can bring more values, you know, like it's better. Also, public schools in Brazil is not good, unfortunately. I have to say, sorry, Brazil, but that's true. So,
Because a few years ago here we had a discussion about whether we should have a Christian school in Scotland, like specifically an Adventist school in Scotland. From my personal perspective, I felt that what's the point? Because if you just put people in a place where everybody thinks like them, they never learn about what different opinions are like. Do you think that helped you? Do you think? I know Brazil is it's pretty different because Brazil is more it's really more is more religious than here.
yeah.
Here we had a survey, I think a few years ago before COVID, where for more than 50% of people do not believe in God. It doesn't matter whether it's Christian, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism. They don't believe anything. So it's a secular country. But I always felt like you needed to be involved with other people, especially when you're young, rather than being protected.
Yes.
But do you think that helped you guys, or did that hinder you guys, or did that help you guys grow, as in develop into better people because you went to a Christian school?
I think that we need to have this opportunity to know another person or Christians. For example, in the school that we studied in São Paulo, my high school, advanced school, but I studied with a lot of people who doesn't believe in God or are non-Christians. So I had the opportunity to tell about God for them, you know. So I think that when we are in the environment that there is non-Christians, we can to be a missionaries, and to testify about them. An example, I graduated in the high school 10 years ago,
Mm.
and last month I followed in my Instagram a friend. Since my high school we didn't have more contact, and he sent me a message. "Oh, I miss you, my friend. I miss your prayers that you made in the high school."
Mm.
Well, I didn't remember about it, but it was 10 years ago. And I'm telling, I mean that I did something that it was normal for me, but make a difference, you know? So I think that in this contest, when we have the opportunity to talk with non Christians, we can give the testimony by our example.
Mm.
Yeah. But now talking about, like you said, if you create a Christian schools, maybe all Christians will go there. So I don't know about Scotland, but maybe some non-Christians could come. But the thing is, when you talk about school, it's different because we are talking um about teaching. You know, it's different. So let's talk about children. Okay, we are not parents, anyone here. But let's imagine that we have children, and I want my children to learn some values.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's different. So they can make friends in other times for other reasons, non-Christian, if in the school have only Christians. But it's good because we based their faith, because it's different from adults. I think sometimes we confuse this. Like adults, we can think properly. Like especially OMS says that 25 years old we finish to create our
Wi-
frontal, how do we say in
Frontal
English?
lobe.
Yeah, exactly. So 25 years old, I think, or 30, maybe you can Google it later. We become an adult. Like now,
Yeah, they
everything
say
is
that in your
established.
30s, that's when your brain has.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when you hit
Established.
your peak.
Exactly. So if I want my children to grow and to learn with some values, I think it's good to be in a Christian school. You know what I mean? Because they are forming.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say they are forming their mind? So it's different. You know, it's different than adults. Like for adults, okay, we can go another place because we establish in our mind our beliefs. But for children, they can be confused. So we give them a base before, you know. So this is why I think it's important Christian schools, you know.
Okay, because if we look at your lives that you've explained so far, many people think that you guys had the perfect Christian life. You went to a Christian school, you were raised in a in a perfect environment, which for some people may say, because when I know you guys, so it's easy for me to say that you guys are kind people, right? But a lot of people would say that if you raise in that environment, you may end up becoming, what's the word? You may end up becoming thinking you're better than the people
Oh, okay,
who
okay,
are,
okay.
who are
I'm
outside.
better in.
Who are outside. But it's what a question I brought up because now, if we talk about people growing up, right? When I was growing up, didn't have the opportunity to go to a Christian school, so a lot of the values I learned them through my parents, or I was learning them. You know the saying, you're learning on the job.
Yeah.
So you're not being taught, you're learning as things happen. And I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of poor decisions. So I just wanted to ask, like, do you think it is that important that outside of your own family home you also have like an influence, somebody or someone that's influential in your Christian when you're growing up as a Christian to help you navigate all that stuff?
Oh, so you are asking
If it, like having, because I'm assuming you had like mentors in those schools that people here with apart from church you don't have anybody else. Us in school you don't have anybody else to like who's another Christian. At least I didn't have one who then help you and guide you. Do you think that's something that you guys had that really helped you? And now that you're in Scotland, you see that it's probably something that the young people here are lacking.
Yeah, I think because like uh as I said, you said actually about influence. So if we are studying in a non-Christian schools and they are teaching something or many things against our values, our principles, it will be an influence. But okay, you asked also, you said about to think that we are better
Mm.
than others. I think we have to establish what is this because in some point yes, but in some point no.
You need to explain.
Yeah, of course. You know Romans chapter 2, I think, or 3. No, I think it's Romans 2. Paul said, "How about you Jews? You have more. I don't remember in English. I know in Portuguese. Uh, you have advantage
Mm.
than the others, of course." And then he continue explaining, and then in the end he says, "No, you don't have." So why? Because Jews had the law. Jesus came from the Jews, and so on. For these, they had more informations to know more about God. So in this case, they were like better. But when you talk about sinners, about people, we are the same. We are the same. Jews had to fight against sin. Gentiles had to fight against sin the same level. But the difference is Gentiles didn't know about and Jews knew since the beginning. So this is the thing. So when we talk about principles, if I believe that these principles is better for live, for our life, okay, I am in some advantage because I know this before
Mm.
the others. But this uh, doesn't mean that I am better, like I am better person. So I will give different treatment. No, I am a sinner. And actually, maybe it's, if we talk about this, okay, I'm maybe better because I know, but it's worse because as I know, I have more responsibility.
Mhm.
So it's different. So
So
my
it's better to know nothing.
yeah, you know what I mean. So talking about knowledge, okay, we know in advance. Okay, so but talking about sin, maybe can be worse because if I know, I have more responsibility,
Mm.
you know, upon
What
me.
what are your thoughts?
For me, that's. Uh, could you ask again?
No, I'm just saying, like, do you think it was very advantageous for you because you went to a Christian school? Do you think that's the reason that you've been able to navigate your life? I'm not saying it was easy, but it made it easier for you to navigate your life. It gave you advantages that other people didn't have, because here we don't have like many Christian schools. So a lot of people are influenced heavily by their non-Christian friends when they're growing up. But do you think that was an advantage to you or a disadvantage? Basically, that's.
For me, it's an advantage because, for example, to study in an advanced school or the private school, it's a great privilege because we need you need to pay, to study in the private school. So I had this opportunity in my whole life to study in a private school, advanced school. So I think that the principles that I have today, I learned in the school, you know. So I thank God and my family because it helped me to to how can I say this word? My principles to have
As
as a model,
it
you know.
shaped your
Yeah,
life.
ship. Yeah, yeah, for my principles and my values today.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because
And for example, one thing in Brazil, many of our Christian school students, after the high school, they go to study in universities, but no
yeah,
public
public, yeah.
universities. Yeah, and usually the public universities in Brazil, it's very very good, very good. Talking about uh contents, you know, it's hard. For example, you have to study and study and study. But in the same time, most of them bring some non-Christian values,
Mm.
you know. So we can see this difference. So those who study in no don't study in Christian schools, but have a Christian family and go there. I'm I'm not talking about everyone, okay? I'm not talking about everyone, but it's over than 50%. It's easy to leave church. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy. But those who study in Christian schools, they can maybe disturb a little their minds, but they stay in
Mm.
church. You know what I mean? Over than 50%. But of course, it's not
Uh,
everyone.
Maybe I've had a different experience, right? Because I know I've got a lot of friends who grew up uh, in a Christian environment, and their parents were, the dad was a pastor, the mom was so may have been a pastor or serving in church very well. And I've got a friend of mine, won't say the name, but he went to study theology, and he said the closer he got to God, the more he hated the church. So I wouldn't say he's not Christian anymore, but he's decided to like move away from like the institution that is the church, and so on. Which is strange because you're saying that those who went in a Christian environment more likely to stay in church. But from my experience, the opposite seems to be happening. Maybe it's a difference between Brazil and here, but here it seems like the more you learn about God, especially from a theological perspective, a lot of people decide to then go away and then decide that it's too much for them or they don't agree with certain things. I'm sure it happens, uh, but it's just something I've seen that you telling
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
perspective seems to be a
But
bit-
yeah, this can happen in Brazil as well. It's the same. But the thing is, it's not the most of them. You know what I mean?
so it's not the majority.
Yeah, it's not the majority. Yeah, exactly. But in the same time, usually those who say this, I'm not judge your friend, okay? I will just say that is one thing that I can see. And actually, I post a video, of course, in Portuguese, but on my Instagram last week talking about this. Um, when we be close to God, and when we look at church as people, we will give up. But if we change, like I'm not in church because of the church, I'm in church because of God. So why should we decide to go to church, to believe in some denomination, to go to some denomination, Adventist, Baptist, I don't know, because we go close to God, we understand the principles in the Bible, you know, and then we will understand that God wants us to be with people, to get congregational worship, because in the Bible we can see Jesus went to church, for example, even though that church was corrupt. Jesus was there. Jesus was going there. So we can see that Jesus was going to church even though he didn't agree. So we can see that church is important. So we study Bible, we get close to God, and then we will find a church that can be more close to our principles, our knowledge about Bible.
Mm.
And in this case, I will not go to church to see people. I will go to help people. Of course, I will expect help for me. Of course, it's like a trade,
Mm.
a trade.
Two-way thing.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm going to that church because I agree with principles, because I love God, not people.
Mm.
You know.
Well, I think it's
No, I
something-
love people as well, but you know what I mean. Like the most important thing, the goal is God.
I think it's something we can explore more, like in the future
Yeah, of
episodes. But before, this is as an introductory piece to you guys. One thing I wanted to ask you is, look, a lot of young people when we were growing up, we finish university or we finish high school and we're thinking, what do I want to be? I want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor. I want to do this. How do I get to do it? And I want to earn money, right? I didn't want to rely on my parents' help anymore. But you guys have done something completely different. You've gone to university or you've gone to high school theology and so on, and then you've decided I do not want a job because I do not want money. This is not exactly what you thought, but you thought to yourself. It's like somebody might think, how did you guys decide to be volunteers? Basically, have no salary. That in right now, that wouldn't make sense. Especially for like generation Gen Zers, like my brother's
Yes.
generations, they would be thinking that you guys are crazy. No job, no income, you volunteers. So how did that come
In
about?
Brazil, they can think the same.
Why did you guys decide to do that, knowing that it's gonna possibly
Yeah,
put you in a
it
difficult
doesn't
position?
make sense. I do agree with you because, for example, my example, personal example, when I graduated, I started to work as Bible producer in the Hope Channel in Brazil. And after I received a call to work as a Bible teacher in the elementary and high school, I taught Bible class for elementary school, high school, And I had my salary, I had my car, I had my life in Brazil. So like I told you about to feel God calling me, I felt God calling me, Samuel, you need to go to Scotland. And I confess that I thought, Lord, what we will do in Scotland? Because when I applied to the call to come here, I had my life, everything in Brazil, and I thought, what we will do in Scotland, and I discovered that the call would be to work with youth people, you know, and I made the interview, and when I received the email to make the interview, I thought, well, I heard that Scottish accent is too hard to understand, so I won't understand them, and they won't understand me. So I will do the interview. God, yes, thank you for this opportunity. I will remain here in Brazil. So when I made the interview, I understood them. They understood me, and God opens the door and the way to get here. So yeah, it was a difficult decision because you you decided to live abroad your country, to work in a new culture, to work in a new place, in a new weather, everything's new. So I felt God saying to me, I will take care about everything. So we will complete 10 months here, and God provided everything. God, every month, we felt God caring about us. So it's a special call because this call to work as a missionary, as a volunteer, it's not for everyone because you need to sacrifice your life, to serve other.
Mm.
So I think that the best example is Jesus. Jesus was the great missionary. He left from heaven to save the humankind, to help, to preach. So when I look to Jesus, he is my great example. If he was a great missionary, if he preached, if he reached out a lot of people with the main goal to save people, I can do the same with the power of the
Mm.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, for me it's the same. I just want to add one thing that Samuel said before, um, that like you feel, you know. Usually, I don't like to base my faith in only in feelings, but talking about call, sometimes you will not see. Sometimes you see something you can touch. Okay, it's a call. God is calling me. But sometimes you don't see anything, but you feel in your heart. So you go and you trust and obey. Like, and also we have some examples in the Bible. For example, Abraham just left his family and so on. So we knew that it would be a challenge. I didn't know about the Scottish accent, but I was afraid about English because I knew a little about English, but oh, you 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 remember when we came here,
Mm.
our English, okay, even though now our English is not good, but it was broke English, you know. So yeah, I was afraid also about the interview and so on. But when I received the confirmation, I understood that okay, God wants me, so I just go. If He wants, He will provide, as Samuel said.
Mm.
So you just trust and go.
So I know we've been here for a while. I just wanted to ask, were you scared? W- I know you say if we look at Abraham, we look at Jesus the missionary. It's easy to read stories about other people, but when it's you, it's a completely different uh, picture, right? Were you worried, and do you still have days where you are worried that things are not going to work out?
Of course, even Jesus asked God to leave his mission, in the mountain. So
Mm.
even Jesus, we can with Jesus' story, we can see this. But of course, but I think when we when we decide to be missionary in our life, even though in our own country, we don't need to leave our country to be a missionary. When we decide to be a missionary and we decide to be a Christian, we have a God's peace. So we'll be concerned about some things. Of course, we have to sort some problems out. But it's different, because even though you are trying to find somehow to solve some problem, you know that God will provide. So it's hard to explain because you're concerned, but in the second hand, you are tranquil.
Mm. Because I've had chats with you and so on, and I know some of the difficulties that you guys have had here. Um, uh, do you? I know you have family back home. Have you at any point ever said to your family and said, "I wish I could come back," or "I'm tired. I want to go. I want to go back." Have you ever had those feelings?
No, because when I felt that God called me, I know that I would face some challenge. So even challenge that I faced here, I I I felt that this moment could help me to increase my skills, you know. So I never felt, no, I will come back to Brazil tomorrow or next month. No, if I am here, God chose me to be here. So I love a lot of um, Bible verse, and my favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 29 verse 11. I know the plans that I have for you.
Mm.
So he has the plan. If I am here because I am inside of God's plans, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if I have this feeling, this certain that God is with me when I seek God daily by my devotional, praying every day, making my contact with God every day, I don't need to be afraid because I know and I have the assurance that God is with me. And God has shown to me every day that I am with you, Samuel. You don't need to be afraid.
Mm. So just to wrap it up, we'll go into a few deeper topics later on, but this, I just wanted to ask, from hearing you guys, right? The last question I asked you, I was expecting that there may have been some doubts, but you guys seem very confident this is where God wants you to be. Not everybody has the same confidence that you guys have. So just to wrap things out, I just want to ask, why are you so confident this is the plan that God has for you? What makes you so confident?
You are talking about our mission
Are you mission here?
or to stay here?
Your mission in general. Why do you feel like why are you confident enough to say that this is God who intended you to come to Scotland in the first place and be volunteers here?
Okay.
Because not everybody shares. They can be in the position and then start to doubt maybe this is not where God wanted to me. But with you guys, when I'm listening, it sounds as if you guys are sure this is where God wants you to
Yeah.
be. Why?
Okay, I can summarize for my situation. I started to pray intentionally and I started to see signs. So for me it was easy to understand. Sometimes we pray, sometimes we don't see signs. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Signs, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I could see signs. So it was easy to understand, you know. I started to pray for it. And 1 month later, I received a couple of friends called me or messaged me, I don't remember, to ask if they could suggest my name, and then the interview came with many shoes. We can explain later, but yeah, I was seeing some signs. I can explain later, but summarizing is this:
Oh.
I started to pray intentionally, and I saw signs.
In my perspective, I think that the secret is easy for everyone. The secret
Tell
is,
us.
yeah, the relationship with God daily.
Mm.
When we pray, when you search the Bible, because we have the revelation. The Bible is the revelation of God to us. So when I search God daily and I pray, God, I know that when we open the Bible, you speak to our heart. So when I make, as I said, it's too easy because everyone has your own Bible, you
Mhm.
know. I mean that when we search God with prayer and daily devotional, God show us the way.
Mm. We'll continue this discussion a bit further, but I think that's a good place to end, and we'll delve deeper into your story, some topics that some of them are quite controversial, but we'll get to it. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But thank you guys for joining us, and thanks Allan and Samuel for being
Thank
here.
you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We did appreciate it.
Yes.
We'll see you guys on the next episode. See you.